Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to Planet 76. I'm your co-host, Michael Troy, here as well. We're on episode 156. Two? I don't know. You'd think that I would know what episode we're on, considering this is the 152nd time we've done this. Troy and I have definitely had our fair share of things going on, so we have been kind of busy. We haven't gotten as much content out as either of us would have liked, but nonetheless, we're just going to continue posting episodes when we can, however often we can. So we definitely wanted to get an episode out for the free agency draft mania that is the NBA, and that happens every single offseason. So that's what this episode is going to be. Make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram. That's where you'll get most of our updates, get most content from us outside of actual episodes. So, Troy, we already talked about free agency a few episodes ago. We pretty much outlined things that we expect the Sixers to do. It looks like the star hunting path is getting smaller and smaller by the day. Paul George apparently wants to stay on the West Coast. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are off the board. Jimmy Butler apparently is staying in Miami from what I've heard. The Sixers' options are dwindling. And I mean that in the sense of not that they can't do anything, not that they're handicapped, not that their offseason is over, but I mean that in the sense of, in terms of star hunting, the title of the previous episode that we posted actually, there aren't many more things for the Sixers to do. So when you look at that, and again, kind of like what we talked about last episode, it pretty much seems like you and I are both on the same page in terms of what the Sixers should do. Right. It seems more and more likely that that they have to do that thing. They're being pushed towards that thing. So give us some kind of reinforcement as to what we could expect the Sixers to do in the next 48, 72 hours. Free agencies, I believe it begins on Saturday, technically. Yeah, Saturday night into July 1st. So yeah. So or is it Sunday the 30th? I think 6 o'clock. Oh yeah. Either way.
But yeah, so Sunday it's here. I mean, we're recording right now on Thursday night, so we are here. We've talked about it. It seemed like the first time we kind of brought up free agency when the Sixers season ended in round one, it was like, oh, this is way far away. But now we're here, and since then the Celtics have been crowned NBA champions. And as much as we hate that, we are onward to the next thing. So the NBA draft just went down. We're going to get there in just a minute too, but I like the way that you said that. Their options are dwindling, and we're not even to that opening of free agency yet. There's a lot of that's talk, and it seemed like the Paul George. We haven't recorded in a couple weeks, but like that Paul George talk was just on the rise. It was like he's coming, he's on the way, he's going to be in Philly, and now it's just like continuing to go downward, and it's probably at its lowest point, I think, that it's been in quite some time with Paul George. And then, as you mentioned, there's some other guys that are just completely off the board because of what they've done, and now Mikal Bridges is with the Nova Knicks, and OG Anunoby signing that deal there too, and an extension with them. So just kind of crazy to see. But you're right. The options are shrinking. Now the other name, it seems, the popular name is Brandon Ingram, but he's a popular name for just about everybody because many think that he's played his last game with the Pelicans, but, I mean, that means he could go anywhere. So kind of interesting there, but I think I'm most excited about the fact that all of these questions, all of these ideas that people come up with, all of these rumors, come June 30th at 6 p.m., we're going to have some answers very, very quickly, and all the speculation will continue to shrink down too, because it's not going to be speculation anymore. It's just going to be the facts unfolding as they come. So I'm excited about that, and I am excited about Jared McCain, and we'll get there too. But I don't know what to expect. I don't hate the Brandon Ingram idea, but There are some guys out there that can help this team at a different clip, and you can bring a haul in versus kind of one guy and build around.
Yeah.
But, how do you feel? I feel excited about the potential. Now, again, there's a lot of free agents for the Sixers, so there's going to be a lot of new faces on this team one way or another. But how are you feeling as we're just a couple of days out?
I'm feeling good. Nothing's really changed for me because I pretty much outlined my thoughts in our past few previous episodes. If you haven't checked those out already, make sure you check them out. I gave myself a little map here of how I'd like the Sixers free agency to go. I know we talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to give a little more concretely as to what kind of players they should look to acquire and that kind of thing. So the Sixers have around $60 million in cap space this year, so they can sign players up to $60 million for next season. Now, a lot of this, again, we talked about it last episode, our Stay or Go. Actually, that was 2 episodes ago. Our Stay or Go episode. A lot of the Sixers free agent acquisitions are going to be guys that they just had on their roster. Kelly Oubre, anywhere from 2 years, $24 million, $26 million, I think is fair. I wouldn't go any more than that. I think $14 million is just enough. I touched on that too in that episode as well. I'm hoping Nick Batum comes back. I'd give him 1 year, $10 or $11 million. So that's up to $35 million. Just so we can keep the math straight here. Wait, is that right? 13, 10. Actually, whoa, hold on. That's 25. 23. Let's just call it 25 even. So $25 million total. I'd love the Sixers to pursue Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's a new name that we haven't been able to talk about. He wasn't linked to the Sixers even a week ago. Now he is. That'd be a big pickup. He's an instant 6-man and gives you so much in terms of defense. He's a really great three-point shooter. He's a really great perimeter defender. I would love that acquisition. I would go 2 years, 30. I know that he's been linked to deals around the 18 to 20 million mark. If he does get that much money, I'm kind of hoping it's not from the Sixers because that is a lot. That is a lot. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. And I would feel very weary about that much money for KCP. Very good player, super impactful. We could talk about him more if the Sixers end up getting him. But for now, I'll leave it at that. DeAnthony Melton, my personal favorite. 2 years, $35 million. $17 million is where I draw the line. Again, a player linked to that big $20 million a year mark. I'd give him just a little less. Some teams are probably going to throw $20 million at him, $22, $3 million at him. And for a good reason. For me personally, though, I just feel like $20 million is a lot, especially because the injury does kind of concern me, but at the same time, I would give him $17 million. I know it's only a $3 million difference, but I'd give him 17. So we're up to 25. We're up to 30. Actually, that's 40. 40 million. 57 million. And then Buddy Hield. I would re-sign Buddy Hield 2 years, $20 million. That's a little over their cap, but I think they could make some wiggle room for that. Buddy Hield, I think, is a necessity to re-sign. I would like to squeeze Campaign in somewhere. I don't think he's going to go for the vet minimum again. So they may lose Campaign. Odds are they lose Lowry. But these are the players I think the Sixers should keep a priority to re-sign. And again, we did talk about this quite a lot, so I won't go into it too much. But these are the types of players that you need in the modern NBA. Guys who can hit threes, obviously varying degrees. Guys who can defend, obviously varying degrees. Hield is not much of a defender. We know this. But at the same time, he makes up for it tenfold with his three-point shooting, his movement, all that stuff. These are the guys the Sixers should prioritize re-signing in free agency. This having your 2 stars now, they have the blueprint. They just had a very good roster. Like, if you act like the Sixers did not have a good roster this past year, you're crazy. They did. This was a really good team. Obviously, it didn't pan out the way we wanted. There's a lot of things that didn't have anything to do necessarily with the players. Like, the Sixers, you can't say they weren't good enough. You just can't. I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. And I'm pretty sure I've been on record saying that on this podcast and on my Instagram as well. you can't say that. It's not true. So the Sixers have the blueprint. They have the right ideas in place, and they can look at the Celtics. Obviously, you can't replicate what they're doing, but you can take some of that and you can apply it to your team. Really, 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 really good depth in Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. You can look at that and say, you know what? Let's just go out and get the best depth we can, the best high quality elite depth we can. Now, it does suck because they did also miss out on Alex Caruso, which is kind of weird to me considering what the Thunder had to give up to get him, but that's besides the point. There's still a lot of good options out there. Quite a few which I just named during this little rant I'm going on. So that's what they need to do, and that's the belief I've had for a while now. It's funny, I was listening to 97.5 The Fanatic today, and I forget who the guy was, but they had Nick Stauskas on, former Sixer. Shout out to Nick Stauskas. I actually met him. Great guy. He was saying that. He was saying you have your two stars, and you need to pursue high-quality role players to fill out your team that complement your stars very well. This is the blueprint, and Daryl Morey knows this. Even if he wants to go star hunting, I understand. I don't 100% think that's what they should do, but he is doing the right thing. He understands that. He wants to go star hunting, but he knows that high-quality depth is important. He's made tons of moves over his tenure as president of basketball operations to acquire a ton of high-quality depth. It just hasn't worked out. He knows that. So this is what successful teams do in the modern NBA. This is how it works. If you look at the past few champions, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Celtics now, this is what they do. They have 3 or 4, 5, 6 really, really good role players around their two stars. And this is how you do it. This is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you've been consistent with that, all throughout, the end of the season and then all throughout this offseason so far. Yep. I think the biggest question I have, kind of even out of that, for you is if, because we do know we're going to get a few of our guys back, a few that you just named that we hope to get back. And I agree with you in the same regard. I hope that some of these pieces do come back. But we know it's just not going to be full on run it back, mode because it's not going to be the exact same team. But for you, knowing that, who is a guy or two, maybe it's a more affordable kind of role player that you have your eye on. You're yes, that's a guy that can make an impact on this rotation. That's a guy that in an ideal world for you, we would get him because that could, take us. Now, again, like you said, kind of on paper roster, we were in a decent spot last year. But maybe there is a guy that you're wow, getting him could kind of open things up for us, and we can get him at a decent price tag too. Is there someone in mind?
Are you talking about?
That's not a former Sixer.
Are you talking about in free agency?
Yes.
I'm instantly drawn to KCP. I just am worried that he's gonna command a lot of money, and I'm not sure that the Sixers should give him the money because he also is aging. And he's definitely, I don't want to say peaking right now because he's a role player. I don't really know if role players, do that. I don't know if you could say that they, stars peak. We study, historically the peaks of NBA players, the best of that, when they're the best, when they're at their best, absolute best. I don't know if you could say that for role players, but let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say KCP is at his peak right now. Yeah, I feel so weird saying that. I don't know how much, I don't know when there's going to be a drop-off, I feel because he's been so good the past few years. Inevitably, something is coming. I don't know when that's going to be, so I'm very weary about giving him a lot of money. But that's my instant draw is KCP. Okay. The Brooklyn Nets, I know they're not free agents, but the Brooklyn Nets seem to be blowing things up now officially with the trading of Mikal Bridges, so I'd love to see the Sixers try and poach Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson from the Nets.
Yep.
Both really high-quality role players who can do a lot for your team on both ends of the floor. So those are some names, definitely. not to keep an eye on because I'm not an NBA source. I don't know what's going on. But a few names that I would say are instant value adds to this team in so many ways.
Hey, you can throw your rumor into the ring. You might as well.
Oh, I have no rumors. I am not affiliated with anyone. So I'm
but neither are the people spitting them out.
No, I know. I'm simply just throwing darts at the board, and I'm just hoping something hits. We'll see.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it is like, we've talked about it over and over. But
at length.
That this is such an interesting time, interesting season because of the amount of free agents the Sixers have, because of this fact that, well, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know that you would be in the majority, but I don't know that you're like an outlier for saying that the Sixers need to just go acquire high-quality depth.
Yeah.
I think there is a growing population.
I was just going to say, I think
coming to that realization. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I agree with you. I think majority of Sixers fans are coming to the realization that, hey, you know what? Star hunting is cool. Having a third star is great. But at the same time, why don't we just put the money we have to multiple players who can kind of make up for a star? Obviously, you can't quite replicate what a star level player brings you, like a Brandon Ingram or Paul George. But at the same time, you can get a big percentage of that player for much less, and you can disperse your money further and have your money go further than just putting it all into one player.
Yep. Well, and I think there's a lot less, and we talked about this briefly, I think, a couple weeks ago. There's a lot less risk involved when you bring in quite a few guys versus, a Paul George who, I mean, anybody can get hurt. But, like, if you bring in one guy and he gets hurt compared to you bring in five guys and a couple of them are, saddled with injuries for a little bit, like, the drop-off isn't as significant because it's kind of just this next man up mentality. But if you have 3-4 stars, then it's like one of them goes down, it just disrupts everything. And we saw that last year, even though the Sixers did have some good depth. Like, I mean, it wasn't the same team without Joel Embiid, and that's to be expected. But when Maxey missed games, it wasn't the same team. When, even Tobias missed games, like, it wasn't the same team. And when look at the Celtics. Like, one of those guys, Jaylen Brown misses a game, the Celtics still expect to win.
Oh, yeah.
Jason Tatum misses a game, the Celtics still expect to win because there will be a guy that's going to step up and not necessarily go out and get 30, but they might. And
Derek White,
fill a role and,
you might do it.
And play well, yeah. So it is the blueprint of today's NBA, and again, it's thankfully, I'm always thankful for this part of the season, especially since we've been doing this podcast, is thankfully soon we're going to be at a place where it's going to be less speculation. It's going to be, all right, here's what the Sixers did, and now we know, and we're going to move forward. Because there'll be some guys being signed here in just a couple days, which is exciting. So the NBA draft did happen. Number one overall pick, Bronny James. Oh, wait, no.
Wait a minute.
Bronny James did go to the Lakers, though, which is crazy. I saw the thing today that said they were threatening to he was threatening to go to Australia if someone else drafted him.
According
and then he
to
ended
Rich
up
Paul.
on the Lakers. Just crazy stuff.
Right.
Rich Paul, man, crazy. Wild stuff there. But the Sixers did draft Jared McCain. There was a lot of speculation, maybe they packaged that 16th pick for a deal to get, Brandon Ingram. That did not happen, but they did pick up a guy that was kind of expected to be their pick, like in a lot of mock drafts. Like if he was there, they were going to take him. Is Jared McCain out of Duke, the one-year guy out of Duke. TikTok sensation. I don't know how you feel about that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. 14 points a game at Duke, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Shot it really well from 3 on 41%, almost 6 3-point attempts a game. Saw a couple player comparisons for him. The most interesting one, I thought, was Fred VanVleet, just because of the Nick Nurse and how Nick Nurse kind of got a lot out of him in his time in Toronto. I forget some of the other names that I saw. He's not like kind of more of a crafty guard than like athletics gonna dunk on you at the rim, but can shoot very well off the catch, off the dribble. your thoughts on not Rob Dillingham. I do have something to say about Rob Dillingham. I wish we got Rob Dillingham, but what I do want to say about Rob Dillingham is that was the mistake of the draft. The Spurs trading him.
A lot of people were saying
that dude.
Too.
They're trading for like a sixth grader right now because like they're getting a pick in like 2030 something.
Right.
Rob Dillingham is so good. I think he's I think he is the best player in the draft in my opinion. He's so good. I love him. I wish we would have gotten him. That would have been crazy.
The best player in the draft.
That's my take.
Well, but we could talk about that another time.
I think he might have the best career in
That's
of
crazy.
These guys
We
in
could
the
talk about
draft.
that.
I think
we could talk about that another time, though. we could talk about that another day.
Sixers did not get him. They got Jared McCain. Your thoughts on that?
At first I wasn't a huge fan because I wanted them to potentially trade it in a deal for perhaps a really good role player, perhaps Larry Markkinen. Apparently he's not being traded anymore, or he's off the block, whatever. I did want them to draft Dalton Connect. I did, and I still do, believe he's the better option. I think his age helps. I think the fact that he's 23, he's had more time under his belt in terms of professional basketball. I think he's a little more trustworthy defensively. But I'm okay with the pick. Jared McCain, like you mentioned, you touched on it, really good three-point shooter. 6 attempts per game at Duke this past year. Not something to just glance over. He's really good with the ball. He can obviously create his own shot really well, but he can also... He's really good off the ball, too. He's really good in terms of catching and shooting, very quick release. He can come off screens and hit shots very well. That's really important. That's a nice compliment to Embiid and Maxey. And like I mentioned defensively with Dalton Connect, Jared McCain's not a great defender. He's never going to be. But the one thing that did stand out to me, and I was watching some film on him last night for like a half hour. One thing that did stand out to me, I can't talk, was the fact that he's very active off the ball. He doesn't just stand still on defense. He's constantly looking. He constantly has his hands just kind of, in the offensive players' faces, just kind of getting in their way. He's very, sneaky, I guess you could say. I don't know if you've seen Jose Alvarado do that thing where he, fakes going out of bounds and then he steals it from them. That kind of reminds me of Jared McCain a little bit. Not that he does that, because I haven't seen him do it, but the kind of, sneakiness / under the radar, quickness that he has on defense. So I think that's going to be pretty helpful to him. Because especially with smaller guards, if you just try defensively, you're probably going to be pretty good. But more specifically and more importantly for smaller guards, because they have a size mismatch disadvantage. Right. They don't have that ability like the bigger guys do to really use their size to their advantage. So I'm okay with it. If I had to grade it, I'd give it a B, I guess. Mm-hmm. I do wish they drafted Dalton Connect, but it's over now because he's not. They didn't. But no, I'm okay with it. I'm interested to see what kind of plans they have for him in the future. At least for now, I think he could definitely be a nice compliment to Embiid and Maxey. Yeah.
I don't mind the pick at all. I think, like I said, I there was a lot of talk that could happen, and it did. Yep. And he's at least a guy I'm pretty familiar with. I follow a lot of college basketball, right. So
you watch way more than me. I know that.
Yeah, he comes from Duke, which is we know that a basketball factory. We got we got some guys from all the big schools: Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, and so 1-year guy there, and we'll see. I mean, a very talented Duke team that he was on. So, but he averaged 14, 15 a game and made an NCAA tournament run for them. So, pretty solid. The TikTok dancing, however. I see that as a possible. Every time the Sixers lose,
like a meme.
There's gonna be posts on Twitter.
Yeah,
it's gonna be everywhere.
I can see that.
I could definitely see
that.
Huh. I mean, we're talking playoff exit, and it's just gonna be posted everywhere.
That's gonna
be dancing around and everything. I saw more Jared McCain TikTok dances today than I have since he's since he's been
Since I ever
at
have.
Duke, for the last year, right? But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
As long as he plays well on the court, I'm good with it. They did draft a big man out of
I did actually want to
UCLA
talk about him.
as well. I don't know too much about him. Don't follow that much of the Pac-12 or what was the Pac-12. But your thoughts on? I don't even know how to pronounce his name, to be honest.
I think it's Adem Bona.
Okay,
I'm not entirely sure on the pronunciation.
Sounds
but
right.
I imagine it's something close to that. UCLA, 6'10". I believe he played 1 year, maybe 2. I'm not entirely sure, but I like this guy. I was watching some of his film today after the second round ended. I like this guy a lot. The comp that I give him is like an Andre Drummond, but he's more mobile and he can do more offensively, and he's a better defender. So essentially, his ceiling is like a better Andre Drummond, I think. Maybe not the accolades wise, because Andre Drummond racked up quite a few All-Star appearances, All-NBA appearances, I believe, but similar skill set / production levels. Also, what I noticed is that he's really mobile on the perimeter for a big at 6'10". He was moving very well on the perimeter. Now, he was playing against guys who were mostly smaller than him. But his length and his quickness really surprised me from a 6'10" big, because ordinarily they're kind of slow and clunky. But he reminded me kind of like a wing, but he was way bigger than what a wing normally is. So I'm actually kind of excited if he ends up being the Sixers' backup center. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people, mostly because not a lot of people even know who he is, but also because he actually looks like a really good basketball player. So I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, two-time all-defensive team member in the Pac-12.
Oh, so he played more than 1 year.
So, just the 2 years. Oh. Yeah, 2 years.
Wait, what did I say?
You said 2. Oh. You said 1 and then you said 2. You're right. But his numbers went up. You see a year-to-year improvement. Went from 7 points a game to 12 points a game, 6 boards, almost 2 blocks a game. I think kind of some of what you were just touching on. He's kind of active.
Yeah.
You need kind of that versatility behind him, behind Joel Embiid. And, so we'll see how that shakes out. Summer League will be interesting. I think Ricky Council's playing in the Summer League, man. I saw. So
I had the absolute.
Let's go win that thing.
I had the absolute pleasure of watching Ricky Council this season with the Blue Coats. He ended his season with the Sixers, obviously, but he's just great. Like, he doesn't particularly excel at one thing, but he's just like, he just does a lot. Like, he's a really good rebounder. He's a really good three-point shooter. He can handle the ball. Like, he's bigger. He's a bigger wing. He's a bigger forward. So, he's better at getting to the rim and finishing at the rim. And he can also put the ball on the floor and drive. Really, really cool player. Just a really, nice player. Like, you can't really be like, oh, well, he's not that good at that. Like, he does a lot of things really well.
Yeah, he does. I'm excited to see his growth as well.
4 years, $7 million steal.
I know, right? All right, I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up on episode 152. Again, next time we record, we'll be breaking down a lot of these thoughts or questions that are now answered. But what to you is, again, I you said it perfectly at the beginning, that kind of the window or the things that the Sixers can do right now is closing with some of those big names because of what's happened with them. And no fault of the Sixers. They can't do anything until the 30th anyway. And so it's just kind of the way it is, the way the cookie crumbles. So what's your thought on, like, all right, this is kind of like an oxymoron, I guess, but like, what's the craziest but still realistic thing that you could see happening? And it's not like, well, Sixers are going to sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, what's the craziest realistic thing? Like, maybe you're just like, well, Paul George isn't going to happen, so like that's not even on the table at all. Is it Brandon Ingram? Like, what's the craziest thing you could see? Okay,
it's Klay Thompson.
Okay.
I saw the Sixers have, I think, don't quote me on this, have been kind of off and on linked to Klay Thompson.
I think so
ever
too,
since the offseason began. So that's probably the craziest, most realistic thing I could say that's going to happen. Because Daryl Morey said we plan on having the best team in the Eastern Conference this year. I don't know if you saw that, but he said that today, or yesterday, I guess, after the first round ended because he had a press conference. So if no Paul George and if nobody else,
right,
I could see him making Klay Thompson an offer. Hey, Klay, we'll give you $20 million a year. Just come play for us. Take 10 threes a game. Play some good defense. Yep. I mean, okay. I wouldn't hate it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't love it, but at the same time, what do they have? What do either parties have to lose? Like, what does Klay have to lose? What do the Sixers really have to lose? Because you're only spending $20 million a year on a guy who, at his best, I mean, is like a really good 3-and-D wing who can hit threes at a really high level. Like, obviously, right now he's kind of at a low at the floor kind of right now, especially based on last season because he was super streaky. Most of the time, he just was not playing well at all. But as an NBA fan, I believe in Klay, so that would carry over to my Sixers fandom. And if they did sign Klay, I wouldn't hate it. I don't know. I'd be really mixed on it, but I wouldn't hate it at all. That it would definitely be the thing, or it would definitely be one thing that I could be like, you know what, I can work with this.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's a good answer. Crazy yet realistic. Yeah. All right, I like it. I think what would help me be like excited about a move like that is it fully depends on what else they get. Yeah. Which is an easy kind of thing to say, but like if we like all the other pieces that come in, and like then you get Klay too, and who knows, man? Who knows? But Daryl Morey did in fact say that, and it is interesting because he's been quiet.
He's got something, everybody was like, man. I don't know what it is.
Everyone's like, that 16th pick is gone. We're not going to keep that. We kept it. We drafted Jared McCain. He said Jared McCain's going to be here for a long time too, or something like that too. Yesterday or today. He's got something up his sleeve. We're just going to have to wait and see. We've waited this long. We got a couple more days.
If there's one thing that all Sixers fans and everyone associated with the organization should know about Daryl Morey by now, is that he's never really out of anything. So he always has his hands in something. So he has something brewing. I don't know what it is. I'm not an NBA insider. In fact, I'm the opposite. So I don't know what it is, but I can't stress this enough. Full trust in Daryl Morey because, like, I've been saying this for when did
150 episodes.
Well, he hasn't been with the Sixers for 150 episodes, but yes,
however long
for a long time, for 3 years, for a long time. That's a long time. So I don't know. Yeah. We're just gonna have to wait and see. And that's the case for a lot of things Sixers wise, but let's wait and see.
Hey, we're there. We're here. It's almost July. Summer League will be heating up soon. Sixers are going to go chase that title. And free agency will be we'll be recapping that and right in the thick of it here in our next episode. So be on the lookout for that. This is episode 152, talking Sixers draft recap and the free agency that's about to begin. We will see you next time on Planet 76. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.